Hey guys, we're all doing our best to social distance and to stay safe. What better way to do that than in your garage at home? I got a little project I'm working on. This is my 1948 Ford F4. Now this truck originally came from Illinois and it's made its way into northern Minnesota where I drug it all the way down to Tennessee. Now, since then I've pulled out the old flathead and replaced it with a 6.2 liter GM diesel. Now I know what you guys are thinking. These things made a whopping 145 horse and maybe that for foot-pounds of torque. But this build was kind of my son's idea. He wanted a diesel in it so it could clang and bang, and he wanted smokestacks on it. So that's where we're at right now. Today's part of the project, got a radiator from a 1955 Chevy truck. This will help cool everybody down. So we got to get this sitting inside those two fenders. Now I got a couple pieces of aluminum that I've got bent up, so we're gonna mark up some holes, drill, install that, and then we'll move on to putting the hoses on top and be one step closer for this thing to run. So step one, we've got the radiator sitting in here and it's basically centered in between the nose of the truck. Got a piece of aluminum here, it's about 1/8 inch thick. It's bent 2 inches by 2 inches. We're gonna do is slide that piece of aluminum down and in here. We're going to mark out the holes up against the radiator and up against the body. So we'll put some holes in it so I can mount it here, and we'll put some holes in it so we can mount it there. That should be as simple as that is. Then we'll come over, we'll make the upper radiator hose, and I actually was able to use the original stock hose off of the 6.2. So we'll start by marking these out and drilling some holes. Then I pulled the radiator out so you can see how I did it. What I did is I set this flat side up against the inner fender, and then I had this tucked behind here, and I was able to get those 3 marks to mount to the side of the radiator. So we'll go ahead, drill these 3 out. I also threw a couple marks here and here so I can drill some holes out and mount them to the inner fenders. And then we'll repeat that on the other side, and then we'll mount this up. Okay, holes are drilled. I went ahead, made the other side as well. Now we'll bolt both of these onto the radiator. Then we will set it in the truck, and I will mark and drill the holes in the inner fenders, and we'll bolt them on. Slide the radiator down in here. Get it hooked on the lower hose so we know where we are. Spread our brackets out. Do a quick peek. I'm gonna use a Sharpie. Try our best to mark the holes. All right guys, brackets are in, both sides. Now we'll go on to the task of hooking the upper hose from the engine to the radiator. All right, now the fun part of hooking up a radiator that was never intended to be in this truck. So what I do is I've got a couple old scrap pieces of radiator hose that I've had laying around, and on the very end I've got a piece of 1.5 inch tubing. So I'm gonna cut the ends off of these guys to make them work with the bends. I'll use the 1.5 inch tubing to tie them together, and I'll just use a bunch of hose clamps. All right, to start with, this tube fits up here. That's the right size. And then we're gonna kick it and head this direction. Then I've got either this 45 to work with or 2 90s. One is shorter than the other. So I'll probably end up using this short side on that side. And then in the center there, I'll use that piece of tubing to tie them together. So I'll cut some hose and see what happens. Cool little tool, you guys. You can pick this up at pretty much any hardware store, parts store. This one's actually made for cutting like PVC pipe. They work really good for cutting hose and cutting it nice and straight too. Don't quite get all the way through it, but one more snip. It's nice straight, and then you've got good connections. All right guys, radiator's in it and the coolant hoses are hooked up and I'm one step closer to getting this thing fired up. You know, what projects are you guys working on at home? How are you passing the time? How are you staying safe? Share with us. Add the hashtag PowerNation at home. Tell us what you're working on because we're just as curious as you guys are. So stay safe out there and we'll see you next time.